Welcome back, America, 43 minutes after the hour. That is, of course, a theme song to Dwayne's World, the podcast by Generalissimo. And in Wednesday's edition, he had Senator Jim Talent, the former senator from Missouri, on. And I want to know, Senator, candidly, is Dwayne any good at this? Because if I had been doing that podcast, I would have asked you, as a former senator, have you ever seen anything like Pete Hegseth and Pam Bondi back-to-back before?
Well, Dwayne is pretty good at it. He lets me talk a lot.
Well, that's
which
good.
I appreciate. I thought Pete Hegseth did very, very well. You know, I said on the podcast, it's a shame that that the Democrats went after him, in part because I would have loved to hear what he would have said to really substantive questions on issues like China policy, rebuilding the shipbuilding industrial base. There was some of that. There were a few questions, but mostly it was just politically going after him on things like women in combat, which is an issue that's been around a long time. And the answer that he gave is the responsible answer. Well, I'll wait for the first oversight hearing after he's confirmed, and then we'll get into some of the deeper issues he's going to have to confront.
Now, Senator, why would they do that in a confirmation hearing? I understand they know that they're going to lose. They know that. So why don't they ask the big questions? They can go after them later. They're going to vote against them. I know that. But what is the purpose? Why be on armed services if you don't want to know about how many ships we're going to build next year and how we're going to take care of the submarines that are in dry dock? Why serve on that committee?
Well, Dwayne and I talked about that a little bit, Hugh. I mean, a couple of things. First of all, they decided, and I got to be fair, I mean, the minority party in this situation will usually try and hang a scalp or two on the wall in the confirmation process. And if you're going to do that, you want to focus on an issue that's safe for you to talk about politically. So they were not going to get into DEI because they know how unpopular their position is. And you're going to try and focus on an issue that might turn some Republicans. Well, we know Senator Ernst feels strongly, and properly so, that women should be allowed in combat where they can meet the standards. So I think that's probably the logic behind it, the feeling that that issue was the best chance they had maybe to turn a few Republican votes.
Now, in terms of going forward, the DepSec is a pretty hard-nosed guy, and Bridge Colby is a pretty clear-eyed guy. What do you make of the team, and do you think they'll all get confirmed?
I think they'll all get confirmed. I think they're very good. I think you're going to see Bridge Colby's hand in the national security strategy and the national defense strategy, which is a good thing. He's a brilliant guy and a deep thinker, particularly on China. You're going to see a lot of that, of course, with Mike Waltz at the National Security Council, and his principal deputy secretary is Alex Wong, who was involved in China policy in the last administration. So yeah, they're going to move ahead. They're going to get the national security strategy, the national military strategy. They're going to focus, I think, on rebuilding the defense industrial base, which is absolutely necessary, and strengthening deterrence in the short term in Indo-PACOM. So they're going to start moving pretty quickly.
Former Senator Talent, for the benefit of the new listeners this week, is the chairman of the Defense Initiative at the Reagan Institute. So he knows what he's talking about. However, our audience might not know what you mean by you will see the hand of Bridge Colby. What do you mean by that? What's we got Steelers fans listening. We got to break it down here, Senator.
Well, the national security strategy is a joint effort. It'll be coordinated out of the National Security Council. That's the coordinating force for national security strategy. So obviously Mike Waltz is going to be heavily involved in it. But they will draw on all the agencies who are involved. And obviously a major player is the Department of Defense. Bridge Colby's going to run the Undersecretariat for Policy. He's going to be the Undersecretary for Policy, which is what it sounds like. I mean, he's going to be involved in participating in foreign policy decisions that affect the equities of the Department of Defense, which obviously includes the national security strategy. So I'm not saying that Bridge is going to write it. Probably somebody in the National Security Council will have the pen. But he's going to be very involved in representing the Department of Defense in that process.
Now, Senator, I got to ask you. Today, and then it was announced today.
I was just going to say, you can't do the national military strategy until you have a national security strategy, which communicates the president's priorities, the highest order ends and the highest order means of American strategic foreign policy.
All right. We'll look for both of those. Now, the hostage deal. I was there in 1981 watching as Tehran played Jimmy Carter like a yo-yo. It looks to me like Hamas and Israel are playing Joe Biden. They went out and proclaimed victory yesterday, tried to take credit for this deal, which is Donald Trump's result. And now it turns out the hostages aren't going to walk, any of them, until Monday. Are you surprised that the terrorists or Bibi decided to make sure that Donald Trump got the credit for this deal?
Well, no, because I think President Trump deserves a lot of credit. I think there's been very much a logic to his comments that if those hostages weren't released, there was going to be hell to pay. I mean, he was pushing the negotiations by credibly, and he's credible in this, making clear to Hamas and their patron Iran that the United States was going to take a hand if there wasn't some kind of a hostage arrangement that was acceptable to Israel. And if I can say, I know there's a lot of angst over this agreement. I just don't see it. I think it's a good agreement for Israel. You know, Hamas has been destroyed organizationally. They operate in cells. They can't communicate with each other. Israel's going to get to control the Philadelphia corridor, build a huge buffer, which it's already doing in the north, and it's going to have the right to go back in Gaza where necessary to protect its security. And that right this time, is guaranteed by an American government that is led by an actual friend of Israel. So I don't like giving up all those prisoners, but they weren't going to get any of their hostages out without a disproportion of that kind. And as you know, they don't have to give up the prisoners Hamas wants. Israel's going to pick who they give up. So I think it's a pretty good deal. I mean, I really respect people like Michael Oren, who I know is concerned about it, but to me, it's a sign that Israel has basically accomplished its war aims.
It's a very interesting reaction to Israel. Can you stick around and talk to me for a second, Senator Talent, during the break?
Sure.
I'll be right back with Senator Jim Talent during the break. We'll put it on YouTube. I'm back with Senator Jim Talent, retired senator from the state of Missouri. Senator, we were talking about the Israeli hostage deal, and I wanted to ask you one more question. I have neither pro or con. I believe that Netanyahu would never sign a deal that did not reflect the wishes and will of the Israeli people, majority or supermajority. And I know Ben Gvir threatened to quit. I know the commentary podcast, Dan Senor's podcast with Nadal, I can't remember it. Eyal. And it seems to me that this is up to the Israelis to decide, and Trump pushed, but Netanyahu wouldn't get rolled by Trump, would he?
Oh, no, I don't think so. And that's a very good point. I mean, for those who have doubts about the deal, I mean, you have to look at the leader of Israel. And I trust Bibi Netanyahu to protect Israel's security equities in this. And he's taking a risk politically. But that's what a statesman has to do sometimes. He thinks it's the right thing to do for his country. He's going to get as many hostages back as he can. And the other thing about this, Hugh, is with this kind of a deal in place, it's going to make it easier for Saudi Arabia to pick up on the Abraham Accords. And it's going to make it easier for Israel and the United States to focus now on the Iranian nuclear threat. And I would be very surprised if those kinds of equities were not involved in Bibi's thinking and also in Donald Trump's thinking. So, yeah, there's some risk. But I think Netanyahu is saying, look, if I think I can hold the government together, if I can't, we'll go to elections and I'll fight another election out. It's not like he hasn't done that before.
You know, the whole strategic situation has changed, and I for the better, with the collapse of Assad, the defeat of Hamas, the defeat of Hezbollah, and Iran with its tail between its legs, and Donald Trump coming back to the office. I just think it's a win. Did Dwayne talk to you about that at all?
No, I think we talked a little bit about it.
Yeah, he probably missed that one. He missed it.
It wasn't, I don't know if it was a certain thing at that point. Dwayne, did we talk about it? I can't even remember.
No, he missed it. He missed
I don't think it was a thing yet.
There's the excuse. I got to go back on there. Senator Talent, thank you so much. Talk to you next week. Jim Talent on X, Dwayne's World, wherever podcasts are available.